as well. All right. Now, here's a little more about me. I'm an ex-corporate warrior turned into a youth mentor and happiness coach. Why did I do that? Well, I did that for sheer love of mentorship and positive psychology. Happiness is something which is extremely dear to me, very, very near to my heart. And I'm grateful to be on this platform today where I get to share about what matters the most to me, happiness definitely being one of them. So thank you so much, IGP, for this lovely, lovely platform. Let's begin today's session by asking ourselves some very simple yet critically important questions. How many of you are happy right now? At this moment in time, are you happy or are you not? That's question number one. Question number two, how many of you want to be happier? Presuming that you answered you're happy for the first question, would you rather be happy or would you like to be happier? Now, as you type in your answers, let me share an interesting fact with you. When these questions were put across 1 million people over 70 countries worldwide, the answers were universally the same. We are either looking for happiness or we are looking to elevate our state of happiness. All right. What does this mean? This means that happiness is a universal goal and a constant pursuit. Why is it that we are forever looking for happiness? Why is happiness such a constant chase? Well, the answer lies in understanding the nature of happiness. Happiness is elusive by nature. When I say elusive, what I mean is it is a fleeting reality. It keeps shifting with time. It doesn't remain static. And the finish line of happiness keeps moving always. And that is one reason why defining happiness becomes very, very difficult. If you ask me the definition of happiness, I will have to tell you there is no definition of happiness. You heard me right. There is no definition of happiness. While researchers and positive psychologists have come up with n number of definitions, and possibly the internet is flooded with them, but there is not one definition which is found to be all-conclusive and globally or universally accepted. So the other reason for that is, apart from being elusive, happiness is also very, very subjective. It differs from person to person. It differs from moment to moment. It differs from geography to geography. It differs from culture to culture. It is so subjective that you will be surprised when I share the research with you. A happiness a person feels 1 month after winning a lottery is exactly the same as the happiness a person feels 1 month after breaking their hip bone, when they're on their way to recovery. That is how subjective happiness is. So when it comes to defining happiness, the mantra is to each his own. We are all at a liberty to pick and choose our own definition of happiness and go by that. Here is my definition of happiness, which is given by Mahatma Gandhi. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. This is a definition which resonates the most with me. Now, why are we talking so much about happiness of late? Why has happiness turned itself into a buzzword of late? Pandemic could be one very valid reason. The fact that we are surrounded by doom and gloom, we are looking to gravitate towards happiness, we are looking to get past all of that. That could be one reason. But other than that, for the last 20 to 22 years, researchers have found that people who are happy tend to be healthier. They tend to live longer. Why is that? That is simply because people who are happy tend to have their immune systems better developed and tend to fall sick much less as compared to people who are unhappy in life. All right. Now, we all know that it is a well-documented fact that emotions have a direct impact on our health. So the more positive your emotions, the more resilient your health will be. All right. Happiness has also been seen as a direct correlation between happiness and longevity. Happier people also seem, on an average, to live longer. When it comes to social relationships, people who are happy seem to be better at social relationships. Their relationships, be it social, be it personal, be it professional, tend to be deeper, stronger, and far more sorted, far more stable, as compared to people who are unhappy. What does this do? This gives you an added advantage when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to interactions, when it comes to collaborations. And we all know for a fact that in a business world, if you want to be successful, Collaboration and negotiations are the key. And therefore, happy people are more successful because they're able to leverage their social relationships. All right. Happy people are more productive than unhappy people, which means they're able to get more done in less time. What does this mean for the organizations? This means that the profit margins increase when there are more happy people in the workplaces. And that is the reason why organizations are spending a whole lot on happiness programs of late. Okay. Little doubt then that happy people make better citizens of the world. Happy people are more likely to donate their time and money to charitable causes and help others at work. They are an asset to the society and they're also an asset to the organizations that they work for. Okay. Now, while we have understood the concept of happiness and while we have understood the significance and importance of happiness, there are certain misconceptions or myths which are associated with happiness. What are they? One of the foremost myths is that happiness is everlasting and permanent. How many of you believe this statement to be true? That happiness is everlasting and permanent state of joy. How many of you attach the word permanent to happiness? I'm sure there are a lot of you who have this innate belief within them that there is something or someone out there who will come along with a fountain of happiness and the joys in your life will never go dry. It doesn't work like that. Why? Because happiness is not a permanent state of mind. It is a transient state of mind. All right. And therefore, nothing or no one in the world can bring you everlasting happiness or a permanent joy in life. Also, due to the fact that happiness is elusive by nature, it keeps shifting with time. And just like time, while you can attain happiness, you cannot contain it. Okay? While you can't contain it. Okay? It has been seen that the effects of happiness seem to fade away with time. Case in point, marriages and honeymoons. How many of us believed that marriage is the ultimate passport to true and lasting happiness? But we know better now, right? Therefore, what you need to remember here is that happiness is a transient state of mind. You need to work and rework at it to create it over a long period of time. Myth number 2. In order to be happy, you need money. Now, this is a big one. I know so many people who relate money to happiness. How many of us tend to think that if there is a job which is well-paying, we will be happy in that job? How many of us tend to think that money is a prerequisite for happiness? They think that it is the rich people who are happy people in the world. Now, for a lot of us, we tend to think that in order to be happy, you need money, luxuries or materialistic pleasures. You need fame, like Facebook likes, Instagram followers, recognition. You need power, authority or significance. You need possibly to look a certain way, using makeup or looking a certain way. That is what is going to make you happy in life, and that is going to keep you happy over a long term in life. Whereas in reality, these external circumstances account only to 10% of your happiness. You heard me right. Only 10% of your happiness depends upon external circumstances. So the way you look, the way you dress up, the amount of money you make beyond a certain level, your education, your workplace designation, or the city you love, all these external circumstances account only for 1/10 of your long-term happiness. Which brings us to one of the most important myths today. Happiness is genetic or hereditary. How many of us believe that happiness runs in the family? Or for that matter, unhappiness runs in the family? A whole lot of us, right? You are right, but only partially right. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because only 50% of your happiness depends upon your genes, which is something that cannot be controlled. But rest of the happiness, which is the next 50% of your happiness, is completely controllable. It depends upon your internal state of mind and your external circumstances, out of which only 10% of your happiness depends upon the external circumstances. 40% of your happiness, which is a sizable chunk of happiness, can be manipulated and worked around and make your life less miserable or more happy. as the case may be. So even if you're not born happy, you still have a chance at happiness. Isn't that amazing? Tell me in the comments, how do you feel about it? Now, how does all of this boil down to workplace happiness? So, happiness at work depends upon three primary factors. One is engagement. How engaged are you at work? Are you able to sense a state of flow or not? Social connections, your workplace interactions. Do you feel supported or not? Helping others flourish. What is the kind of impact that you're able to create at the workplace and beyond because of your work? If you're able to work around these three factors, you will be able to elevate your happiness quotient at work. All right. Now, let's also look at a few happiness habits. What are happiness habits? These are certain habits and rituals, or perhaps behaviors and actions which put your mind in an easy, calm, and happy state when practiced consistently or regularly. What are they? First is physical exercise. By physical exercise, I primarily mean moving your body. If you're able to move your body for 20 minutes on a regular basis, you will experience a surge of a neurotransmitter which is called as endorphin. What does endorphin do? It is a mood elevator. It will put you in a better mood and it will make you more energetic and more motivated to take on new tasks. Gratitude. Simple meaning of gratitude is what? It is, simply put, being thankful. If you're able to recollect or recount 3 things that you're grateful for over a period of 3 weeks every day, you will be able to rewire your brain from pessimism to optimism. This is what the researchers have proved. Even if you cannot put in three points, even if you're only able to put in 1 point, that will work just as well. And that 1 point also doesn't have to be very massive or very significant. It can be something as simple as your eyes to see. You can be thankful for a roof on your head. You can be thankful for the clothes that you wear, for the platter, food on your platter, or perhaps, having a heart that beats or the air to breathe. It can be something as simple as that. If you try it, you will see a definite shift in your mindset. One of the most powerful happiness tools is meditation. A lot has been said about meditation. We all know that it has significant benefits. I mean, the benefits of meditations have been well documented, be it a psychological journal or be it a medical journal. If you're able to practice meditation for 20 minutes on a regular basis, you will be able to alter your brain structure. The amygdala and the hippocampus in your brain will shrink. What will that do? That will make you less reactive. That will make you calmer. And when you're more calm and less reactive, you are more accessible to happiness. Okay? That is how meditation helps. Now, one of the main challenges which people think they find when they're doing meditation is they're not able to sit and meditate for 20 minutes at a stretch. Don't do that. Start with a minute. Carry it on to 1.5 minutes, then perhaps to 2 minutes, and gradually and steadily move it to a 20-minute stack. Try it, at least take the first steps, and perhaps one day you will be able to meditate for 20 minutes at a stretch. Okay? So first step is to try meditation and being optimistic that it will help you in life. Next is altruism. Now, altruism is what? Altruism, simply put, is kindness. If you're able to do random acts of kindness on a daily basis, you will be happy instantly. The simplest mantra to happiness is, you want to be happy? Give happiness. As simple as that. The happiness that you give comes back to you in 2 folds. Now, how do you inculcate these happiness habits on a daily basis? These are some practical tips for that. One is, of course, given. We spoke about that. Next is, of course, when you try to bring smile to somebody else, do not expect anything in return. Because if you start expecting things in return, it will not remain as an altruistic act. Relating and connecting with people. If pandemic has taught us one thing, it is this: human relationships and human health. These are 2 factors you need to pay maximum attention to. Because when you fall sick, God forbid tomorrow, it is not your gadgets and it is not your luxuries that will cure you. It is the people around you who will help you heal and be happy again. So invest in human relationships. Notice the world around you. Simply put, take time to smell the roses, slow your pace, and enjoy your present. Keep learning new things. I think a lot of it has been spoken in the past presentations. Progress equals happiness. Have a goal to look forward to. Very, very important. See, like everything in life, happiness also requires energy. When your energies are scattered, miserable. When you're able to align your energies into a direction or a goal, it'll be much easier for you to become happy. Okay? So have a goal. Resilience. Find ways to bounce back. Now, in this pandemic, there is a lot of chance that people tend to feel mentally isolated and physically sick. Do not keep it all inside you. Vent it out, speak it to people around you, and get back to your resilience. Okay? Emotions. Take a positive approach. To smile and say something positive every time you walk into a room. Why just a room? Walk anywhere, feel positive, and do a self-talk happening around you. Acceptance. Be comfortable with who you are. Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Do unto you what you want others to do unto you. Do not bank on others for happiness. Create it within your own self. Meaning, be a part of something bigger. Now, people who tend to have longer lifespans definitely give support to a good cause and become a part of something much bigger than themselves. Okay, they always have something to look forward to and be aligned with. All right, now as we draw close to today's presentation, there is a small Zen story which I want to share with you. Few of you would have already heard this story or read the story, but nonetheless it's a great story to narrate, and this is where it goes. This is how it goes. Once upon a time, there was a young man who was looking for happiness. He wanted to learn about the secrets of happiness from the wisest of the wise. Now, the wisest of the wise lived right on top of a mountain. So he decided to climb the mountain to meet the wisest of the wise. Now, as he was climbing the mountain, he had a picture of this person in his head. He thought to himself that this wise old man would be a hermit-like creature who would be living in a hutment all by himself, eating simple food, wearing simple clothes. But much to his surprise, as he climbed the mountain, there was a castle that was erected there, a palatial castle. And the wise old man was surrounded by beautiful women and noble men. There were billion-dollar deals which were being cracked left, right, and center. There was wine and cheese that was flowing all across the room. The young man was mighty impressed. He told the wise old man that this is why I'm here and this is how I want you to help me. To which the old man replied, "Son, you will be rendered what you're here for, but this is my time for siesta. Meet me after 2 hours and then we'll take it forward. In the meanwhile, what you can do is look around my castle, see what you like the most, and tell me why you like it. I only have one request. Here is a spoon and here are 2 drops of oil in it. Whatever you do, whatever you see, wherever you go, don't let this spoon of oil in the spoon spill." To which the young man agreed. He started his castle tour, but he was so consumed about these oil in the spoon that he could barely pay attention to any of the wonders of the world which were there in the castle. When he came back after a couple of hours, and when the old man asked him, "Son, what did you like the most?" The young man answered, "Sorry, sir, I was very concerned about the task entrusted to me. I couldn't pay attention to anything." The old man said to the young man, "Son, I do really want you to go and take a look at the castle once again. Take a second shot at the castle tour, go around, tell me what you like the most, and we will take it forward from there. Only thing is, keep the spoon and the oil intact." The young man started his journey once again, but this time he was a little relaxed and a lot more encouraged. He started his castle tour, he looked around here, he looked around there, he saw the Persian carpets, he saw the Ming vases, he saw the silk rugs, and he was mighty impressed. After a couple of hours, when he came back, he was enthralled. He told the old man that, "Sir, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to see your castles. I want to know, where did you get this from? Where did you procure this from, that from?" The old man looked at him patiently and told him, "Son, I will answer all your questions, but first off, tell me something. Why is your spoon empty?" The young man replied, "I must have spilled the oil when I was engrossed looking at the painting that you have." And to which the old man said, "There you are, son. This is the answer to your quest. The secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never forget the drops of oil in your spoon. As long as you can enjoy the pleasures of the world without forgetting your core duties or dharma, you will be